Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for tuning into our podcast. It's about payroll. We're your hosts, Brian Escobar and Walter William Duncan III. Whether you're new to the payroll industry or a seasoned vet, this is the podcast for you. Hello, everyone. It's your host, Brian Escobar and Walter William Duncan III. Welcome to the podcast. We begin our series today on the 5 pillars of payroll, with the first pillar, talent and education.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So with this pillar, we're going to be talking about a few different things about hiring,
Yep.
training your team,
Yep.
things that we research, education, because education is the bedrock of payroll. You're always learning, things are always changing. So you're always going to have the continued education in
Absolutely.
this field.
Absolutely. So the 5 pillars of payroll are really important as it helps us guide our decision making and the rules around our department. And the first one is talent and training and education. Second one is documentation. The third is systems and processes. The fourth is data processing. And the fifth is customer service. And today we're going to concentrate on training and talent. But before we get into that, I found an interesting tidbit on TikTok, and I sent it to you. It was as we talk about different things to share on social media platforms. It's hard to think about what you would share on TikTok for payroll, but this kind of came close. It's in the world, right? So the story was how a comma or a lack of a comma in a legal document caused. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did watch that one.
Okay. It cost the state of like Maine or something like that, or a company in Maine rather, like $5 million.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And this is why I go hard at work, because it is that easy where one word and how you interpret things, and there's your interpretation and there's how it was meant to be. So the gist of it all was because there was not a comma in a sentence, like the comma indicating and type of thing, right? There was no comma there, so it made the sentence look like it was one sentence. And so basically, if I can summarize it quickly, these truckers were delivering, I don't know, jam, and they weren't getting paid overtime. And because it was written in the state law exempted anyone who was packaging, preparing, and distributing jam, I think, is something agricultural.
Yeah.
And because they did not have the comma there for and, comma, or distribution, you had to do all of it to be exempt.
Yes.
The way they wrote it. But if you had just the driver piece, the distribution piece, you weren't packing. The drivers weren't packaging. And the exemption was packaging and distribution. The way it was written, it wasn't intended to be written that way, but somebody missed a comma.
Yep.
So because that they missed the comma, they were able to sue for overtime for 5 years. It cost the company like $5 million.
Yes.
And that's why I go hard at work, because things can be interpreted different ways. And I always challenge people they'll send me something and I'm like, where's the backup? Where's the compliance?
Yeah, guys, I can attest to that. You will do that.
Point me to the legislation that backs this up.
Yeah.
And it's not to be mean. I need to cover my department, because if my boss asks me, why did you do that? I'm going to say, hey, this person shared the legislation. We were in fact doing it wrong, and we're gonna change it. Like, simple as that. And then your boss is happy. They're like, oh, great, no problem, good stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, that was a funny story, and he did share it on TikTok. He made something boring go real quick, and it seemed like forever that I had to listen to this story. But I think the limit is only 6 minutes now.
Yeah, it is.
So that was interesting.
Yeah, that was an interesting story, and
right.
And it's like that. If you learn from those stories and stuff like that, like we all have stories in this industry, right?
Yep.
There's stories that you could tell, I could tell, that our peers and former bosses and supervisors told us throughout their careers that we could always lean on to help us throughout our careers, and that we look back to and hold fast to because they helped us. Yeah, that was a $5 million costly mistake, man.
For real. Yeah, man, let's get into it unless you got something you want to chat about.
No, we can go right into it. I do want to, before we begin, just let you guys know we do have these ordered. And Brian wasn't planning for me, didn't know about this, but I wanted to say that this is something that he developed. So I want to make sure he gets his flowers for that.
Come on, man.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I just want to shout him out for that because he is a hell of a payroll professional, and so I definitely want to make sure he got his flowers for setting this up and passing it to someone like me. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, man. Look, I think that all good payroll professionals know this stuff. I just took the time to package it up. If you guys have some thoughts on it, share. This is about having a conversation and figuring out what helps us best as payroll professionals. And I think that, right, as if you're a seasoned manager, if you're a new manager in payroll, whatever it is, there's something in here, a little gem somewhere in here that's going to help you. And how do you start building a team or getting your department in order? That first pillar is your people, right? You're either going to hire great people or you're going to train your current team up and get them better. And like Walt said earlier, being in payroll is always about continuing education. You have to want to stay up on, you have to like doing research and staying up on the latest and greatest of what's going on and all your localities and states and whatever you're in, federal laws and all this stuff. So in any event, as we talk about training and talent, I went out there and looked at some lists, like qualities to look for in hiring a payroll person. And it was interesting to see the different lists. And there were so many, and it's good stuff. There's some content out there. It was helpful. Of course, recruiting companies are going to throw the list together for you and bring you to their sites and whatnot. What they didn't do though, and what I'm going to do for you guys tonight is put it into like categories, right? Because I think, in my opinion, I think that there are a different set of skills and or talents or characteristics that you want to look for at entry level. There's a different set at intermediate, and there's a different set at leadership, all kind of adding on how they want to sell us different packages. But if you buy package B, it includes A and B. It's kind of the same thing, right? If you're going to hire somebody intermediate, you need the entry level and the intermediate. If you go to leadership, you need all three categories to be full. And you jump in, Walt, anytime if you think there's something I missed or whatever. So like for entry level, I think that you got to be organized.
Yes.
You got to have some urgency in your work, reliability, adaptability, people skills and customer service, same. And that one I want to circle back to or all of them for that matter, but attention to detail.
Underline that one if you're writing notes. Underline attention to details, please.
I actually did it on my notebook.
Of course you did. Of course.
My bad. He was talking to y'all, folks.
Yes. So you guys.
And then the last one, and probably the most important in payroll, is honesty. And do you agree? Is that I kind of right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like for an entry level person, that you'll need all those things that Brian listed out for you,
or at least 80%. At least 80% of these, right?
Because something you said, like some of those can be learned.
Yes,
some of those can be honed. Like one of the things that Brian said to me, you should hire for personality. And because you can teach skills, right? So if you get somebody that is willing and open and teachable, that's one thing I learned throughout my career, is to always remain, no matter what level or stage of this profession that I was at, to always remain teachable, because you're never going to know everything. You're never going to know every compliance, everything like that. That's why you got to have a team built to help you along the way, because you're going to have people that are strong in some areas and not so strong in other areas. Like we all have those points that we're strong at, but this is to help you become more balanced. So yes, at the entry level, you need all those things, attention to detail.
And that's exactly what I wanted to circle back to, the teachable part of it, because some of these things are innate and should be by nature, but some you can't. I don't think I was always a people person, and some folks may still argue that, but I think I have a high standard for folks, but I can do the people piece, and I have been I've gotten better at it over the years. I was very
Mm-hmm.
bad at it coming out because I was one of those payroll persons. Like once I learned everything, I felt so empowered
Mm-hmm.
and I had this righteousness about payroll. And I
Mm-hmm.
would find things in the
Yeah.
company and I'd be like, this is wrong. We must change it now.
Mm-hmm.
Compliance and penalty and rah, rah,
Yeah.
rah. Like
Yeah.
you got it. And eh, that's not the way. You have to learn to frame these things better, and you have to have that
Yes.
people skill to manage up, to manage
Yeah.
sideways, to manage down, and be able to
Mm-hmm.
talk to folks so you can push your agenda. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're not hearing that it's in best for them if you're coming at them, if you don't have that people skill. So all that to
Absolutely.
say, I think I've gotten a lot better, and I could stand to learn more. I would love to go through like workshops, sales workshops, and customer
Yeah.
service workshops. Man, I would love to put that time in.
Mm-hmm.
For at the very least, though, I stay reading, and I think I do exercise it
Yes.
when I'm talking to our customers because it's everybody that I work with are
Yep.
our
Absolutely.
customers.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Then if I can jump in here real
yeah, of
quick, like
course.
I know that I had a hard time myself dealing with people. And a former manager of mine suggested that I do the audiobook, Crucial Conversations.
Yes, great book, guys.
And
Get it. Yep.
and yes, it helped me out on so many different levels, not just the professional level, but even in
Personal
my
relationships.
my yeah, my
Yeah.
personal life. It
Hmm.
helped me understand. And there was one part where they had examples of what those crucial conversations could be like at
Yep.
work,
Yep.
because those crucial conversations are a part of corporate America, not just payroll,
Absolutely.
but they're a part of corporate America and business. You're gonna have some frank, uncomfortable
Hmm.
conversations sometimes, whether you're a manager who has to reprimand or coach one of your employees, whether you're someone who is that employee and you're getting reprimanded by your management. So one thing they said is that, and this ties into what Brian just said, you have to learn how to come to people and not go at people.
Yes.
You have to be able willing to come to someone and say, "Hey, we need to have this conversation. It's uncomfortable. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm not trying to, rattle you or anything, but we need to have this discussion because this is for your betterment and for our betterment as a team. And I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't hold you accountable or hold you, basically hold you accountable
Hmm.
for these things. So we got to understand that this is a part of life, and one of the many traits and payroll is that you have to not take things personal. You can't
Absolutely.
take things personal. Like what I mean by that is that if you do make a mistake, or if you do feel like that something should be different at
If you were
your
ignored.
job.
Yep. Hmm.
Yes, you know what I'm saying. If you're like Brian was saying, if you doing the rah rah rah, hey, we need to change this and do that and do this and whatever, and nobody's like listening to you at that moment, don't take it personal. It's okay. I'm not saying that your emotions aren't valid or anything like that, but you need to know how to operate as a professional, and this will just help you along your career, no matter what level you're at. Even if you're in a leadership position, you can still fall prey to those
Absolutely.
emotional times and find yourself being upset and frustrated. You need to have those outlets and stuff at your disposal,
Hmm.
so you know how to operate in these situations, because trust me, they are going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was great. And now, so that was the entry level characteristics. Now, for intermediate, you want all those things we just talked about,
Hmm.
but at this point, you want to start looking for the excellent soft skills, right? Those
Yeah.
people skills, and you want to also look for a business acumen because as you
Yeah.
grow as a payroll person, we need to understand the business we're in
Yeah.
and how it all works back and forth with
Hmm.
payroll and payroll is one of the biggest expenses in a business.
Hmm.
So a lot of smart folks in the business pay a lot of attention to the payroll part of it. So you want to be a part of that conversation. So you have to have that business acumen. You really need to know how your business works, how the
Yeah.
employees get paid, what are the little ins and outs, how,
Yeah.
what is happening at the field level. I had a boss that really pushed for us to spend time at the store level because being in
Mhm.
payroll, you're always in headquarters, and
Yeah.
sometimes you're disconnected from the folks that you serve. And a lot of times you start not understanding what they go through. So I encourage you, if you're a payroll person and you have that like you're disconnected from the people you serve, ask if you can spend time in the field
Yep.
and
Yes.
spend a day in the store, spend the time at the school, whatever, on the construction site or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Try to spend safely spend time in the
Yes.
field.
Where your heart at.
Yeah, where your heart had if you're construction. And so you can see what your customers are going through
Yes.
and understand why they have these payroll, and a lot of it could translate into some things that you see on the payroll side that you're not understanding, and you have a
Yes.
different empathy for them. And the other one was, and basically leadership qualities, because if you're if you want to hire a senior person or a manager, you want to see that they have some leadership qualities, even if they haven't led people in before. You can ask them right questions.
Absolutely.
We'll have to go through that again. Let me make a note. Uh, Once upon a time, I developed a few questions. I don't think the questions matter, but it's when you're hiring. Oh, I guess right now is the time. Right now is the time. I'm
Yeah.
not making a note. We just talk about it right now. I
Yep.
use so actually, and this is when me and Walter met when I was hiring for this department, and we were rebuilding the department little by little, and I started getting a lot of candidates, and we were bringing folks in. We had a great recruiting team. They were bringing people in, no problem. But what I noticed was I was wasting time because I had no pre-screening of this employee.
Yep.
Only what the recruiters were pre-screening, but they're not payroll folks, and they don't always. So what I developed was like it was an escalating questions. If you couldn't get through the first 3, you're not going to get at the last 4. Or what? I think it was. I feel like it was 5 to 10. But
It was like 10 questions.
was it 10? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I did was I said, hey, put me on the phone with them first, and then I'll let you know if I want to bring them in. And I would ask folks these questions. If they couldn't answer the questions, then there was no reason to bring them in and waste your time. So if you're hiring someone at any level, go ahead and develop those questions, in advance, and give them 5 at least. And if they can't get to 5, then you probably don't want to see these people. You know what I mean? Unless you're hiring to train.
Yes.
Period. And that's a big factor. I was not hiring to train anybody. I was hiring folks that needed experience because I needed them to hit the ground running. I needed them to already just learn our way of doing payroll, right? Once you're a good payroll person, all you need to know is how you do it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to touch on a little bit more on what Brian is saying, there's been instances where during my career, I've seen people be in other fields, but they've been great at at the other profession that they were in, and they made a transition over to payroll, and they ended up being rock stars.
Yep.
As a payroll person because they had the tools, the groundwork. Thank you. The groundwork already instilled in them to be successful. So they had the attention to detail, they had the personal skills, they had the teachability, they had all these different things at whatever level they were at to be able to go ahead and ascend and learn in the payroll industry. And one thing I wanted to go back on and I wanted to ask you, maybe not a question, more so than a statement. Critical thinking. Is that an intermediate or leadership skill?
That's a great question. And can it be taught? Can you teach it? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
in a way, yeah.
You would hope so. And at the end of the day, like I had shared recently with you, I believe that the human mind has the potential to do anything and be as smart as anybody else. I think it really depends on our drive to get there. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. If there are things preventing one person from being just as smart as another, go ahead, share it with us so we can learn something. But that's how I feel. So with that being said, yeah, critical thinking, but I think it's at least something you can develop, and you
begin in the intermediate level, right?
Yes.
So you begin to
at the intermediate for sure.
Yeah.
You don't really. It's entry level. It's something. It's going to fall in there anyway because you're looking for that attention to detail, that adaptability, the organized person, and I think you can develop it from those. But by the time you're an intermediate, yes, you do have to do some critical thinking, and it's trying to think 1 or 2 steps in advance Yeah, it is important at any level, and I think it can be developed.
Yeah, it can be definitely be developed and honed. I do believe that, and the way to do that is through education, right?
Yeah.
Education and
Hmm.
experience. You won't learn critical thinking if you don't educate yourself, first of all, and if you don't ever have the experience to develop those skills and hone those skills even more. I remember I was at a employer. I'm not gonna
Yep.
shoot any names out there or
Exactly.
anything like that. Don't want to get in trouble. But like, yeah, had an employer where I was never being taught anything. I had to teach myself stuff, and I was still limited in what I could do because and how I could answer questions because everything was password protected by management. I didn't have access to it. So whenever somebody would come to me from another department when management was out, and I all I could say is basically, "I don't know. I'm
Yep.
sorry, I can't help you. I have to you have to wait for Brian to get back or this person to get back." It
Right.
wasn't Brian. His name wasn't Brian, but I'll
Oh,
use
thank
Brian as an
God.
example. You know what I'm saying? You have to wait for this person to get back or whatever. So so he can help you. So it made me feel inadequate. It
Yep.
made me feel not good enough in this position. But so, and that's another thing. If from a talent standpoint, you're going to run into those situations where you have leadership that, for a lack of a better word, that or better words, it's this job security on their end. It's protecting themselves instead of boosting you up. Then you may have to look at maybe finding a different an employer or going to them and having those frank, crucial conversations with them and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, we need to do better because I want to be better. I want to help you. I want to learn these things. I want to like it's your profession, right?
Yep.
This is your profession. This is your career. You can go as far as you want to. Like Brian was saying, with the human mind of being able to learn, you can shape your career in that certain way as well.
Yep. Agreed. The next level is the senior level of payroll. And
Mhm.
at that point, you really want a well-rounded individual that knows systems. They have the compliance piece, like they have a hold of, again, you're never gonna know all of it by heart, but they'll start to have that critical thinking where you start saying key words that will red flag for compliance issues.
Yeah.
And at that point, a lot of throughout this whole level, the whole certification may come up. And
Mhm.
for us, certification is not mandatory. The APA does a great job of helping folks stay
Yes.
informed. And when we say certifications, folks, it's the CPP, the Certified Payroll Professional, and the
Mhm.
FPC. What's that one? Fundamental Payroll something.
Yes. Something. Let
Sorry,
me look
guys.
it up.
Okay, cool. And you'll see when you're looking for jobs that it's preferred because not everybody has it. You can't mandate it yet. It's not like the bar where you have to get this to be a lawyer. That's not the case. It's a nice to have, and we've both sat for it, and it is a good, nice to have. But don't make that don't let that let you miss a good candidate because you may be holding on. Oh, they have to have their CPP.
Yeah.
You know,
So those two are the fundamental payroll certification
got it.
for the FPC, and like you said, the certified payroll professional
Professional. Thank you, sir.
CPP. Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. So that pretty much rounds it out when you're hiring at an entry level, you want some those basic organized urgency, reliability. And then when you get into the next level of intermediate, now you want more of the soft skills and the business acumen and leadership. And then someone in the top tier of leadership and payroll, which can mean many things. Ooh, we talk about payroll job titles, which can mean many things. You want them to have that rounded systems,
Yep.
meaning they've touched many different systems. Ideally, that's
Yep.
somebody you want it to have. You want that compliance and legal piece, and you want them to be very serious about continuing education because if they're running your department, whether they're certified or not, you
Mhm.
want them to push for your team to have an opportunity to learn. So
Mhm.
now when I'm in interviewing now, I make sure that my prospective managers know that I need an education budget in the interview. I'm already
Yes.
asking for education money before I even get hired. because I know you can hit a wall when you can't train your team and you don't have the resources to like keep your team educated. Like you're gonna struggle in payroll. You have
Yep.
to stay tapped in to the information, the laws and regulations. Ideally, you have your SHRM account. You don't have to have the SHRM, all that, but you need to tap into
Yeah.
these established, well respected sources of content.
Yeah.
SHRM, APA, the states in it of themselves will keep it information pumping out to you because they want
Absolutely.
you to do it right. It's their money, so you have to stay on top of that. And
Yeah, if I can cut in here, like
yeah,
there's other
absolutely.
there are, even if you're limited with finances, whether from a personal standpoint or a business standpoint, due to whatever circumstances, there are free courses out there that you can still take. You
Yes.
still educate yourself. You can do reading, things that will teach you and help you along your career. Excel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us in payroll have to deal with these Excel
Yes.
formulas, pivot
Yeah.
tables,
Yeah.
VLOOKUPs,
Yeah.
if, then,
Yep.
all these different formulas and
Yep.
stuff that we have to create magic with,
Yep.
that we have to learn. There are some free Excel courses out there that you can find. YouTube, believe it or
Yep.
not,
Oh,
is
heck
a
yeah.
great resource for stuff.
Great resource for Excel.
Mhm.
I just taught myself the if formula finally this year.
Mhm.
And I honestly, I don't even know if I taught it myself because I just actually just made a cheat sheet that I leave by my computer that I can refer to when I need to write it. But that's one of the VLOOKUP. I'm like the VLOOKUP king. But because it's really like with Excel, just the sidebar, it becomes what you need it for. So
Yeah.
some other folks are doing charts and this and that because that's what they need it for. But for payroll, you learn how you need the tool. And to the what you as you spoke about learning things, it made me think about something. Invest in yourself. If
Yes.
your employer does not want to cover it,
Yes.
I pray that you find a way to invest in yourself, because guess what? You need to move on from that employer. If they're
Mhm.
not investing in your education and your learning for payroll,
Mhm. Mhm.
man, you got to go. Okay.
Yes.
So go ahead and use that job to invest in yourself and educate yourself so you can go ahead and start applying to the next job.
Yeah.
And it's a good segue into payroll titles.
Yeah.
And
Before we go into
go
payroll
ahead.
titles, I want to say one or two things.
Go for it.
When I first met Brian, one of the things that he told me as he was training me, because I had been the intermediate payroll professional until I began working with Brian at this one company. And one thing he told me was that as a manager, I never want to hold you back. I want to train you to take my job. Yeah. So basically, if something ever happened to Brian, if he moved on or whatever, he said that the payroll team could function without him. That they could promote from within
Yep.
and move forward. And that stuck with me because Brian not only trained me, he trained other people, and he had the people skills that he was putting into use then. He was putting, like, because every person has their own personality. They learn differently in different ways. So you have to go about it in different ways. But that never caused Brian to waver from the fundamental that I'm gonna teach you, no matter what your learning style is. I'm gonna teach you to take this job because I want you to excel. And when you excel, we excel, and then the business excels in the long run. And then one other thing, and then we can go on to segue to what you were saying with the the titles,
Yeah.
the job titles. As far as trust, right? Trusting your team and trusting you as whether you're a manager or you're a payroll professional who has to trust your peers. Someone told me a long time ago that if you can't trust your team, then they shouldn't be working for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They shouldn't be working for you.
That's true.
Because trust plays goes a long way, whether not from a personal standpoint, but from a professional standpoint. Can you trust your team to do the right thing?
Yep.
Can you trust to keep the team to make the right call? Can you trust your management to make the right call?
For real. And that applies to you're flipping burgers or cutting checks. It's just
Mhm.
a little bit more important in our business because of the sensitivity of information
Yes.
and the access that we have as payroll people. It's just a little bit more important in our field. And some, you know what, I do have some noteworthy characteristics as well. I felt like we should just, it, I don't know, it was interesting that they mentioned them. They said perseverance,
Perseverance. Mhm.
perfectionism, but I don't like that one. I wanted to mention it to talk about it because I understand what they mean,
Mhm.
but it's you're never gonna hit a perfect payroll because there's so many
No.
factors beyond your control. I get it, that's the goal, but
Yeah.
you also have to be realistic and know that as long as you have a really small percentage of errors and they're small errors, that it's a with
Yeah.
analytical mindset, of course,
Mhm.
and experience and education. And I think it's that's almost synonymous because this is still a field that you can, and I think we're both sides of the same quarter where you came up 20 plus years
Mhm.
without the formal education, and I
Mhm.
came up to 20 plus years with a college degree, but it
Mhm.
didn't make a difference in we're still at the same point and
Yeah.
know the same things. You know what I mean? So you can't, you'd be mistaken to pass up someone like you because you didn't have the some degrees or what, or you're a master's. No, you don't need all that
Mhm.
in payroll. It's those are just filters that companies use for our jobs. Because if you,
Mhm.
I'll gladly take someone with 20, 30 years experience in payroll over someone who's just coming out of college and been
Yeah.
only doing it for a few years.
Yeah.
Gladly. And again, folks, you could, if you want to invest in your people, send them to college, get them the
Yeah.
degree. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Give them tuition reimbursement and let them get that degree because Walt is right. And I'm proud that you remember that for many reasons, but that's the way it should be. And I think just studying managers, I'm a big student of business and I love
Mhm.
reading about other successful managers and business people and whatever. And a
Yeah.
lot of those, what do they call it? Is it level 10 leadership or something like that?
I think so.
Where
Let me see.
you really, that's, you're pushing your team. You're not pulling them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or the team's not pulling you, you're pushing them. And yeah, I'm really proud of my recruiting, man. I think I have a winning record when it comes to recruiting, whether they like to believe it or not. But everybody that I've hired has gone on to be successful in what they're doing and still thriving as a payroll person or as something else. My very first hire
Mhm.
was for a non-payroll position. I got the opportunity to hire for an accounts
Mhm.
receivable clerk or coordinator, but it was like entry level, right?
Mhm.
And that person, I'm not going to mention her name, but she still went on to be successful. She knows who, I don't know if she knows she's my first hire though, but if you're hearing this, you were my first hire as the AR clerk coordinator. And she's went on to be successful. Like
Yeah.
she was a beast at her. Oh my goodness. And that was, and I kept on, and I was really proud of everybody went on to be successful.
Mhm.
So I'm really proud of that fact. And of course, including Walter, right? That's gracing us with his presence on this, my partner, my brother. And I appreciate you, man.
Likewise, bro.
I couldn't have done what we're doing
Mhm.
now without you. A while ago, I asked Walt to join me on where we're at currently. And for me, he really took a big loss to help me come do something great. But I think by now he's seen that it is something, we are doing something great.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's a fulfilling
Yeah.
environment. We get to architect and lay the path down. We're the subject matter experts. Our
Yeah.
bosses are amazing. They give
Yeah.
amazing support. What an amazing environment it is to be, to grow, and to influence and help. And our purpose now is we want to build the department so that it could be easily handed off. Not that we want to rush out of here, but
Yeah.
I think you have to think about it that way to build a good payroll department. You
Yeah.
have to be able to plug and play. My first payroll boss told me, you being the only one knowing is not job security.
Yeah.
That's not job security. And I think that's what kind of fueled the rest of my attitude about it in training and teaching and learning. But it's not worth it if you're the only one that has it. You have to share it. And it's not job security. So
Yeah.
I take that and I use that as that's the groundwork that every payroll department, especially if you're building everything new or even if you're rebuilding and you have to update everything,
Absolutely.
think of it, okay, if I go away tomorrow, how do I pass this over to my bosses and say, hey, do this and that, or how do I train my replacement?
Mm.
That's how I think of it. Because again, another great boss of mine told me that if you're good at what you do, you will never be out of work.
Absolutely.
If you're scared about being employed, it's because you're not good at what you do. And there's a chance that somebody's gonna beat you out. But if you're good
Yeah.
at what you do, you'll never be out of work. And he's been true for that. That's carried me through bad times in my life and
Yeah.
moments where I was like, oh man, I suck. And shout out to him for that. We're not gonna do names and brands right now. Let's keep it real right now. They know who they are. Yeah, they know who they are. And I told him that, and I actually told him that. He was like, "Man, that means a lot," and it means a lot because you don't know when something you're telling someone hits a note for them. Yeah, man, that's it, man. I just wanted to share that piece.
And let me go back to what you were saying about the levels of leadership. Brian was referencing the 5 levels of leadership, and he was talking about level 5. That's something that was developed by John Maxwell.
Yes.
He's really good. He has several books.
Yes.
About leadership and management and stuff like that. And level 5 is called the pinnacle. And it just basically talks about having longevity and intentionality and basically being that leader that creates opportunities that other leaders don't. Basically, being a type of leader that creates a legacy in everything that they do.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Another John Maxwell's good. I'm reading right now. I put it down. Good to Great. So I picked something else up. I have ADD when it comes to books. I love reading, but I'll put stuff down, read that, read this. Anyway, the Go Giver. John Maxwell's Good to Great. John Maxwell, all his stuff is good. Good to Great is awesome. So far, I'm like halfway through. The Go Giver, I forget the author's name. He's a good one. Something I read recently, guys, for payroll. Leaders are readers, right? And it ties right back to that invest in yourself, whether it be books, whether it be these LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com, and lynda.com was amazing. And it's still amazing. LinkedIn Learning is, go listen to that podcast actually on how lynda.com started. That's an interesting one. And there's so many things you can do to go keep yourself going. And it's important that in payroll, there is no set path. But guys, we're going to lay it out for you. We're here to help you on that path. What is it that's going to help you become a better payroll professional, right? And if you're a payroll person trying to get into payroll, or if you're already in it, this episode in particular, because it's going to help you either hire right, or it's going to help you think about it. Wait, am I getting into payroll, or I just got this job? I'm thinking about this job. Do I have these skill sets that he mentioned in the entry level part of it? You know what I mean? Is this something that, that I think I can be good at? Because if you're not, don't do it. Believe it. You know what I mean? And be honest about it when you get into payroll. Separate the doing from the politics. If you're good at the job, stick with it. The politics will work itself out. Don't let the politics dictate, oh, I don't like payroll because my last boss the first boss I had was bad. That's not how to judge it on its merit. If you like I love doing the work. And that was like my claim to fame, and both of us for that matter, just being good processors.
Yep.
If you could be a good processor, you're going to get the opportunities to do more. And that's how you grow. And we'll take you down that path, man. And this first pillar is the first and important. You got to start with the person, right? Maybe you can argue that you got to start with the process, but I think that's my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And The Go Giver is a 3-book series by Bob Berg and John David Mann. There's 2 authors on that. It's a 3-book series.
It's really good.
You can find that anywhere online. It is really good. And I think that's a perfect segue. I know I interrupted back there.
No, you're good. We're flowing.
Talking about the job titles, but yeah, we're going to get right into the job titles, I think. How did you want to go about that?
I thought it was interesting that like one of the recent job titles that I saw out there was payroll transformation manager. I thought that was one of the most unique titles I've ever seen. And then it just made me think, gosh, there's so many titles in payroll. People make them up. What I want folks to focus on is not the job title, so to speak, but look at the job description. Think about, they're going to tell you where they want the person to be, whether it's entry or intermediate. I'm not big on titles as long as I'm getting my worth and I like my work. So for me, it's about worth and work. You can call me the custodian. I don't really care. Work and worth. So try not to harp too much on job titles in the beginning. If you're a title person, then it is what it is. But you're gonna have a tough time in payroll with that because they misalign sometimes. Payroll coordinator, payroll clerk, payroll specialist, senior specialist, level payroll entry level 1, level 2, level 3, payroll manager, payroll director. And
Yeah.
it's even gone up to VP. You can be a vice president and be a payroll person.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
it was more so just to keep it in mind that it's not a set science on the payroll titles. Let's say, for instance, it might be more structured. Accounting titles might be a little bit more structured, and you know what to expect if you see a certain title. That's not
Yeah.
the case in payroll. You can see 3, 4, 5 different variations of the same job, and they call it all kind of things. So I just thought it was interesting. Did you come across any interesting ones or
Yeah,
noteworthy?
definitely. I found one that I found noteworthy, like you were saying. One that stuck out to me was the 401k payroll contribution specialist.
That's interesting.
To me, that like Brian was saying, like it it seems more targeted for a specific role. Again, I would have to see the job
Yeah.
description to see exactly what they
Mhm.
want this person to do. Is it more so this person is just a 401k person that handles
That's what it
um,
makes me think.
some payroll contributions,
It may
or do I process payroll and
Uh-huh.
am I responsible
True indeed.
for 401k?
It
Are
makes
those
me
my main
think
roles? Yeah,
it makes me think that company has a big payroll team and this person is a
uh,
specialization.
gotcha.
That's what I think. But you're right, because then that's the whole point. Like you have to dig in further because you may read that at face value and be like, oh, I only have to
Hmm.
do 401k. And
Yeah,
then you dig in and they're like, no, we want you to do the payroll, but you have to concentrate on
yeah,
this. Is the rest of it we got other people for it. We need you to and that happens, folks, because a lot of times the payroll kind of gets caught with things that they do best. And because it goes through your check,
yeah.
somehow you have something to do with it, you may get roped into doing it. And it's okay. You got to
Yes.
embrace it
Yeah.
because
Yep.
you're learning something.
Yep.
You're learning something, right? And
Yep.
embrace those skills. And maybe that's part of invest in yourself as well, is
Absolutely.
ask for to be involved in things. And I've done that, and more so recently in the last probably 5 years than ever, is like I actively asked for more work and
Yes.
to
Yeah.
be a part of a certain project, or
Hmm.
hey, put me in, coach, I want that. And you
Yeah.
got to speak up, right? This part of
Yeah.
that's part of the playing the game we call life, is
Yes.
speaking up for yourself and asking for what you want. How do you know if you get it if you don't ask for it? What's the worst that can happen? They say, no, that's it. Are you crazy? No. Okay, no
And
problem.
even if they say no, like this, that's why it's important to also keep connections in the industry. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, with people, because just because your employer might not educate you on something, you might have someone you used to work with who's in the management position now. That could be their specialty. You can ask them a question, shoot them an email, grab a meal or drink or lunch or something like that, and ask them like, hey. You don't have to go into details for confidentiality reasons, but
Hmm.
you can say, "Hey, if you had this scenario, what would you do?" You don't have to give out any PPI information about your employees or anything like that. You could just say, "Hey, what would you do in this situation? How can I learn about this?" And remember to tap into those resources,
Yep.
or whatever, because that's another form of education. Going back to
Absolutely.
that,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
one thing that I wanted to, while you were talking about worth and work, I had a acronym come up when it came to that. And it's why you want that wow factor when it comes to choosing the job. So W, you want a job that knows your worth. O, you want a job that provides you with the opportunity to excel, to continue to grow as a professional, and to have an opportunity to not only meet your goals, but also the goals of the company, because it's a two-way relationship.
Yep.
You as the professional and your company as the business, as the
Absolutely.
employer.
Absolutely.
And the last W is work. You want to enjoy the work that you do.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that work is going to be hard. Sometimes it's going to be long hours, especially in this industry. Sometimes it's going to be those things, but at the end of the day, it's going to all be worth it. Yeah, man.
Love that. And just, yeah, no, I just want to recap for everybody. The first pillar talent, you're going out and either you have or you're looking or need to develop entry-level skills. It's being
Yeah.
organized, it's being reliable, it's being honest, it's
Yeah.
attention to detail, having those customer service skills and what Walt threw in there was awesome is crucial conversations. Start developing your crucial conversation skills because that's like you said, it's going to help you in not only at work, but it's going to help you everywhere in life. And what you say? You said come to people where they are, not don't go at people. Come
Yeah.
to them where they are.
Yeah.
And as far as crucial conversations and people skills, and then as you're either growing through or looking for intermediate or a leader, you want some bit more type skills. You want the systems. You want
Yes.
compliance. You want
Yes.
somebody who's hungry for learning. You
Yep.
want those excellent soft skills. You want that business acumen, and you want to develop your leadership qualities. And these are all things like, again, either you're looking for them in someone you need for payroll, or you're that payroll person. And I just laid out all the things that you need to be developing to get to the top of the ladder, to be successful, to develop in payroll. If you want payroll to be your lifelong journey, then that's the roadmap.
Yep. Absolutely.
And wow. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, folks.
Until next time, right?
Yep. Thank you for joining us today on our podcast, It's About Payroll. We're your hosts, Brian Escobar and William Duncan. And until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going.